Hello, everyone. So this week modules for discussion was about social power, and we talked about what does it mean to be an alpha dog. So first off, someone who we consider as someone who has social power has, we would like to assume that that person has control over others. They're able to articulate their vision, their missions, the organization's goal, how one can achieve these goals. One who has social power has also control over the resources that comes in and out of an organization. Um, which means a lot when you're talking about how information gets transferred from one department or from one individual to the next. So when we're talking about power by itself, we all know the definition of power means having either influence or control over someone. But there's as we know, there's levels to the form of power that one may have access to. So one can have legitimate power but not have um, expert power, right? So one that has legitimate power may just have control over how things might have control over day-to-day activities within an organization. But when someone needs expert power, they don't necessarily go to that individual. So it's also important to know, just because you're in charge of an organization or just because you've been put in a position to lead does not mean how you view yourself, others are going to view you within that light. When we're talking about refinement power, we're talking about those individuals that they what we would consider they don't have to do much to influence others. They can say little, but their actions say more, to get others to agree with them. And in the sense of when we were talking about alpha dogs this week, in my personal opinion, I think we were talking about individuals that have impact in our day-to-day success or that have had impact within our day-to-day lives. So for example, the reading talks about alpha dogs as being individuals who can think and make effective decisions, who have strong communication skills. But then, and also in that same light, like alpha dogs can be individuals who are like overly aggressive, who only see things from their perspective and not the perspective of other, which can be very detrimental, I think, to any work environment. So I know another point to add on that is like when you have alpha dogs within any organization, those individuals can also create like cliques within cliques if those individuals are not mindful of like how they execute their power. So I know a perfect example from my like work experience. When I first started working at my current school, I felt like there was a social power dynamics between like my school principal and her interaction with other teachers. And I think it's a natural thing that sometimes we don't notice that, like, if we've been with an organization for a long period of time, we tend to form closer knit relationship with certain people that we often don't take into account how that may be impactful for someone who's like new within the organization. So I know when I first started working at my current school, like I felt that much of like, oh, it's the principal and her group of people that liked her, and then if you didn't fall within that clique or within that realm, like you're kind of like an outsider looking in. So for example, like when I used to go to meetings, I used to like suggest ideas and like put things on the table, and I almost felt like it was ignored, but then others will say the same exact thing, and I felt like their words were valued at like a different extent to mine. So like just being mindful of that. I think I had a conversation with my principal about the dynamics, and I phrased it more in a noticing, wondering kind of statement, so it doesn't come off as like it comes off as naming the situation, but within a positive light. So like after having that conversation with my principal, we kind of now have formed a very like workable situations. We don't agree on everything, but I don't feel like my thoughts and opinions are not valued compared to others. So that was one area that I felt like, yeah, she was in charge and like everyone always went to her for everything. But I also felt that it created like a very awkward working relationship for many who didn't feel that close to her. So I think being an alpha dog, you also have to be mindful of like your inner circle of like either people you make decisions with or people you interact with, so it doesn't come off as like you're using your power to then influence others even when you're wrong. I also worked with another person who had like I guess negative traits where that leader just thought that their decision was like always right. There was no in between, so it was kind of like oh okay, like you can't always be the leader who has all the answers. So those were like um my overview of the reading from this week. I think there was a lot of insightful things to learn from there, and one thing I also got from that the reading this week is to also just be mindful of like the titles and the things we give people, because sometimes I think the issue also comes from when people don't live up to our expectations of what we perceive. Then I think that's where situations get a little bit tricky. But yeah, that was all from this week.